The night was quiet, and the human named Daniel sat near the edge of his small farm, listening to the faint hum of the colony lights in the distance. The stars above were clear, shining like cold fires, but his focus was on the vegetables he had grown with his own hands. They were his pride, his way of living in this lonely, alien world. He had always been careful. His greenhouse stood strong, filled with bright green plants that gave him food and sometimes extra to sell. Yet on this night something felt strange. A sound reached his ears, soft, uneven. Like a broken breath mixed with rustling leaves, Daniel froze. His heart quickened. Someone was in his garden. He moved quietly, step by step. The soil was cool under his boots, and his hands tightened around the small lantern he carried. The sound grew clearer. A faint scraping, a trembling hand pulling vegetables from the soil. He raised the lantern and the light revealed her. She was an alien woman, thin to the point of breaking. Her skin was pale, marked with faint lines of hunger and sickness. Her clothes were torn, barely covering her body. She clutched a handful of carrots, her fingers shaking as if even holding them required strength she did not have. When the light hit her, she gasped and fell back, the vegetables scattered on the ground. Her wide, frightened eyes shone as if she had been caught stealing the breath of life itself. Daniel stared at her. His first thought was anger. Someone had broken into his garden. But that anger melted quickly when he saw her face. It was not the face of greed, but of despair. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking like a dry twig. She fell to her knees, bowing her head so low it almost touched the dirt. "My children are hungry. I had no choice. Please, human, I beg you." Her words hung heavy in the night air. Daniel did not move. He had heard stories of aliens who survived in the ruins beyond the colony walls. The wars had destroyed their villages, leaving many wandering, unwanted. Their kind were treated as shadows driven away. Yet here one was, stealing from his garden, crying out for her children. His mind battled itself. He could turn her in, call the guards, and his farm would stay safe, but in her eyes, he saw not a thief but a mother. The woman's body trembled, her hands pressed against the earth as if she could sink into it and vanish. She did not reach for the food again. She only begged, her voice cracking, "I will take punishment. But, not my children, please let them live, give them food, they are so small." Daniel's breath slowed. His lantern light flickered across her thin frame, and for the first time, he noticed how weak she truly was. Her bones pressed against her skin, and her shoulders sagged as if the weight of the world was crushing them. He knelt slowly, lowering the lantern. His voice was careful. "Where are they? Your children. Where are they hiding?" Her eyes widened, wet with tears. She shook her head as if afraid to tell him. "They are near, in the caves, but they are weak, too weak to move. I came alone. If the guards find us, they will take them away. They will not live." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had come to this world seeking peace, not trouble. But fate had brought this starving mother into his garden, and now her words echoed inside him. Behind them, the wind shifted, carrying the sound of distant boots. A patrol was walking the colony roads. Their voices were faint but sharp, searching the night. Daniel's stomach knotted. If they found her here, she would be dragged away, maybe even killed. The woman heard it too. Her hands clutched the dirt. Her breathing sharp and uneven, she whispered again, softer now, as if every sound could betray her. "Please, human, do not let them take me. My children will die without me." Daniel stood frozen between two worlds, one of safety and rules and one of compassion and risk. The lantern shook slightly in his hand, casting shadows across the woman's desperate face. For the first time in many years, Daniel felt fear, not for himself, but for the lives of strangers who had no one else. His garden had been his sanctuary, but now it had become the stage for something greater, and in that moment, with the patrol's voices growing nearer, he knew that his choice would decide everything. Her fate, her children's lives, and perhaps even his own. The patrol passed by the outer road, their boots echoing faintly in the night. Daniel held his breath until the sound faded. Only then did he lower the lantern and look again at the alien woman. She had not moved. She knelt in the dirt, her thin hands pressed together as if in prayer. Her eyes were wide and wet, and Daniel saw in them not only fear but something deeper. Hope, fragile and trembling, he spoke quietly. "Stand up, you cannot stay here." His words made her flinch as if she expected him to strike. Instead, he bent down, picked up the scattered vegetables, and pressed them back into her arms. Her lips parted in shock. "Why?" she whispered. Her voice cracked. "Why help me? Humans, they do not help us." Daniel sighed. He had no answer that made sense even to himself. Maybe it was the way her eyes looked at him. Maybe it was the memory of his own mother back on Earth, who had once begged neighbors for bread during a hard season. He only said, "Because your children are hungry." The woman covered her mouth to hide a sob. She tried to speak, but no sound came. She bowed her head low, whispering words in her own alien tongue. Daniel could not understand them, but he understood the meaning. Gratitude mixed with pain. He motioned for her to follow. "Show me," he said. She froze again, eyes darting toward the colony walls, toward the night road where the patrol had passed. Her body shook with fear. "No, too dangerous. They will find you too human." But Daniel stood firm, his voice steady. "If you want your children to live, take me to them." The woman hesitated only a moment before she nodded, clutching the vegetables close to her chest. Her steps were weak but desperate. She led him away from the safety of his garden, past the last fences, into the rough fields beyond. The air grew colder as they walked. The stars above seemed sharper and the ground was rough with stones. Every shadow looked like a soldier. Every breeze carried the memory of danger. Daniel stayed close, his lantern shielded. They reached a cluster of caves hidden in the hillside. The woman stopped, listening. Then she gave a soft cry, like a mother calling softly to her young. From within the cave, two small figures stumbled out. Daniel's chest tightened. The children were thin, their skin pale like hers. Their clothes were nothing but scraps of fabric, their eyes too large for their faces, glowed faintly in the dark. They looked at him with terror, then at the food in their mother's hands. The smallest child, no older than 5, reached out with trembling fingers, whispering something weak and broken. His voice was so soft, Daniel almost missed it, but the word carried clear in meaning. "Hungry?" The woman fell to her knees, pulling them close. She broke the vegetables and gave each child a piece. They bit into them like starving animals, chewing fast, their eyes closed. Tears spilling as they ate, Daniel stood frozen, watching, his mind swirled. These were not thieves, not pests, not enemies. They were only children, desperate and alone. He felt a sharp ache in his chest, as if guilt itself had taken root. The older child, maybe 8 or 9, lifted his gaze at Daniel. There was no trust. In those eyes, only suspicion, hunger, and the silent question. Why is this human here? Will he take us away? Daniel knelt, lowering himself to their level. He spoke softly. "I will not hurt you." His words were plain, but he knew words alone meant little. So he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small ration bar he had kept for emergencies. He held it out. The boy stared, then slowly reached forward. His hands shook as he took it. When he bit into it, his face changed. For the first time, Daniel saw something new in those alien eyes: relief. The woman watched this with tears streaming. She whispered, "They have not eaten for 3 days, I thought. I thought tonight they would not wake again." Her voice broke, and she buried her face in her children's hair. Daniel's throat felt tight. He looked at them and thought of the patrols, the colony leaders, the harsh laws. If anyone found them here, they would not care about hunger. They would only see illegal aliens, threats to order. The children finished the food quickly, but their eyes remained fixed on Daniel. Wide, glowing, waiting, hungry not just for food but for mercy, for safety. Their eyes pierced him deeper than any weapon. Daniel stood, his decision weighing heavy. He could not leave them here, not like this. He turned to the woman. "You cannot stay in these caves. They will find you sooner or later." She shook her head, panic filling her face. No, if we go near the colony, they will kill us. They hate us. Please, human, you should not be seen with us. They will turn against you too. Daniel clenched his fists. His life had been quiet, safe, ruled by routine. But now, standing in the cold night before two starving children and their desperate mother, he knew that safety had already been broken. The boy licked, his fingers clean, his glowing eyes never leaving Daniel. The little one held a half-eaten carrot like it was treasure, and the woman kept whispering thanks, her voice trembling with fear and hope. Daniel looked back toward the faint lights of the colony. His heart beat heavy. In those lights lay his home, his comfort, his place of belonging. But here, in the shadows, were three souls who had nothing, and he realized for the first time that his choice would not just feed them for one night. His choice might decide whether they lived or vanished forever. The children's hungry eyes did not blink. They only waited, as if silently asking, "What kind of human are you?" The cave was silent except for the sound of small bites and weak chewing. The two alien children ate as if every piece of food was the last they might ever see. Their glowing eyes, large and wet, never left the human who had brought their mother back with food. Daniel stood near the entrance, his lantern low. His mind was heavy, his farm, his quiet life. All of it felt distant now, replaced by the sharp truth that lay before him. He had discovered a family the colony would call unwanted, yet he could not call them that, not after what he had seen tonight. The woman finally spoke, her voice soft but shaking. "Human, you should not be here. They will notice. They will punish you for even speaking to us." She pulled her children close, as if afraid Daniel might vanish or turn against them at any moment. Daniel knelt down, lowering himself so his voice carried calm instead of authority. "Tell me your name," he asked. His words were simple, but they made her stiffen. Names were dangerous things. A name meant trust. A name meant risk. She hesitated, then whispered, "Sira." Her voice cracked when she said it, as if she had not spoken her own name aloud in a long time. "These are my children, Leora and Kellen." The children did not speak. They only clung to her arms, watching Daniel carefully. Daniel nodded slowly. "Sira, I need to know. Why are you here? Why? Hide in caves? The colony would say you are trespassers, but I want to hear from you." Her lips trembled, her eyes lowered to the dirt floor. For a moment she looked as if she would stay silent. Then the words burst out, filled with pain. "Our home was destroyed. The war came and burned everything. My people fled, but most never made it. We came to this land because it was once ours, long ago, before humans claimed it for farms and cities." Her voice hardened for a moment. "But when we returned, they called us strays, pests, thieves. They hunted us, drove us into the shadows. We are not allowed to live, not allowed to exist, my children. They are guilty only of being born." The silence after her words was heavy. Daniel felt it sink into his bones. He looked at the two small figures, thin and tired. His anger rose, not at them, but at the cruelty of a world that could let children starve in the dark. "You should not risk stealing," he said quietly. "If the patrols find you, they will not listen. They will take you away, maybe worse." Sira's eyes lifted to his, and in them burned a fire, small but strong. "Then, I will keep stealing until I fall. What else can a mother do? If I do nothing, they die." She pulled her children closer, her arms wrapped around them like a shield. Daniel's chest tightened. He saw her strength, her fear, and her love, and he realized she was not asking for pity. She was demanding to be seen as what she truly was, a mother fighting for her children. He rubbed his hand across his face. His thoughts were at war. He wanted to help, but helping them was dangerous. The colony would call it betrayal. Already he could hear the voices of his neighbors. Why protect them? Why waste food on them? They are not ours. But when he looked at Sira's children, he could not see enemies. He saw only hunger and the silent question in their glowing eyes. "Will you leave us to die?" Daniel spoke firmly. "I cannot leave you here, but I cannot take you openly either." The patrols search often. They will find you sooner or later. If you want to live, you will have to trust me. Sierra's whole body tensed. The word trust seemed heavier than stone. She shook her head quickly. No, I cannot. Humans always promise and then betray always. Why should you be different? Daniel met her gaze without flinching. Because I did not call the guards tonight, I could have, but I didn't. Because I gave food instead of punishment. You may not believe me yet, but I am not like them. The children stirred. Keln, the older one, spoke for the first time. His voice was weak but steady. Mother, he gave us food. He didn't hurt us. His glowing eyes turned to Daniel, suspicious but curious. Sierra's lips trembled. Her arms loosened slightly. She wanted to believe, but fear held her tight. Her voice broke. If I trust you and you betray us, my children will die. I cannot take that risk. Daniel leaned forward, his voice low but strong. Then make a bargain with me. I will bring you food every night, enough to keep you alive. In return, you do not leave the caves during the day. You keep the children hidden. If after some time you see that I mean no harm, then you can decide if I am worthy of more trust. The cave was silent. The children looked between their mother and the human. Their hungry eyes shone like faint stars. Waiting, Sierra closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. At last, she whispered, "One chance, human, only one. If you are lying, I will run until I fall, but I will never let you take them from me." Daniel nodded. He did not ask for more. He only said, "Then it is agreed." For the first time, a small spark of hope flickered in the darkness of the cave. It was not trust, not yet, but it was the beginning of something fragile, something dangerous, something that could change everything. And outside, in the night air, the sound of patrol boots echoed faintly again, reminding Daniel that his choice had already placed him on a path from which there was no return. The following nights passed in silence and shadows. Daniel kept his word. Every evening after dark, he carried food hidden in sacks. He walked the rough path to the caves, always careful, always watching the colony road. Sierra and her children grew a little stronger. The hollowness in their cheeks faded slightly. Their eyes, though still haunted, no longer looked close to death. Each night, when Daniel handed them food, Sierra's voice shook less. Though her fear never left, the children sometimes whispered small thanks. Their trust was slow, fragile, but it was beginning to bloom. But danger was never far. Patrols grew more active. The colony had heard whispers of missing vegetables, rumors of strays. Guards were sent in larger numbers, hunting through fields, searching caves. Daniel knew it was only a matter of time. One night, as he returned to his greenhouse after a delivery, he heard it, the sharp, echoing call of patrol horns. Lights swept across the fields. Shadows of soldiers moved like wolves in the night. His chest tightened. They were searching close, too close. He rushed inside, quickly covering the evidence of his absence, but before he could rest, there was a heavy knock at his door. "Open!" a voice barked. The sound rattled the wood. Daniel froze, his heart pounded. Slowly he opened the door. Two soldiers stood there, armored and armed. There, faces hard beneath the glow of their helmets. "You, farmer," one said. "Have you seen movement on your land? We track strays in this area. They steal food, dangerous creatures. You must report at once." Daniel forced his face calm. "I have seen nothing," he replied, his voice steady though his stomach churned. The soldier narrowed his eyes, scanning Daniel's face. "If we discover you are lying, you will lose more than your farm," he warned. Then they turned and marched off into the night, their boots thudding heavy. Daniel closed the door, but his mind was already racing. If the patrols searched the caves tonight, Sierra and her children would not survive. He grabbed his lantern and ran, his feet pounding across the fields. His lungs burned, but he did not stop. The caves came into sight, glowing faintly with the children's dim eyes within. Sierra looked up as Daniel rushed in. Her face was pale with fear. She had heard the horns too. "They are coming," Daniel whispered sharply. "We must hide you now." Sierra clutched her children. Where? They will search the caves. Her voice broke. We have nowhere to go. Daniel's eyes darted around. Then he made his choice. Follow me, he ordered, his voice stronger than before. They hesitated only a moment before running after him. He led them across the dark fields, the patrol lights sweeping closer. Their shouts carried on the wind. At last they reached the greenhouse. Daniel pulled them inside, shutting the door quickly. The air was thick with the smell of soil and leaves. Rows of vegetables stretched under the faint glow of lamps. This way, he whispered. He pulled open a section of soil bed, revealing a small space beneath where he had once stored tools and supplies. Get inside. Cover yourselves with the blankets. Stay silent. Sierra's eyes widened. They will smell us, they will hear us, she whispered, trembling. Daniel shook his head. They will see only plants, only dirt. Trust me, Sierra. You have no other choice. She held her children close. Kellen pressed against her side, Leora clinging to her torn dress. With one last look at Daniel, she crawled into the hollow, covering the children with her body. He pulled heavy cloths over them, scattering loose soil and leaves across the cover until the space looked like part of the greenhouse floor. The door to the greenhouse banged open. Soldiers stormed in, their lanterns swinging. Daniel stood frozen, pretending to be startled. What is this? He demanded. Why are you in my farm? Inspection, one soldier barked. We track movement near your land. Show us everything. They began overturning boxes, kicking soil beds, shining lights into every corner. Daniel's heart raced. He could hear faint breaths beneath the tew. Soil, could they hear it too? He clenched his fists, his jaw tight. Every sound of boots on the wooden floor felt like thunder. One soldier stopped near the hidden hollow. His lantern swung over the soil bed. For a terrible moment he crouched. Down, pressing his hand against the dirt, Daniel's chest turned to stone, if he dug even a little deeper. The morning sun rose over the colony, painting the fields in pale gold. Daniel had barely slept. His mind was heavy, replaying the night when soldiers had almost discovered Sierra and her children. Their frightened breaths under the soil still echoed in his ears. He knew this could not go on. He could not keep hiding them in secret forever. The patrols were searching harder, and if they were caught again, there would be no escape. Inside the greenhouse, Sierra sat with her children. Their faces looked less hollow, but fear clung to them like a shadow. Leora leaned against her mother's arm, whispering softly, while Kellen watched Daniel with eyes both curious and guarded. Daniel crouched near them, his voice steady. You cannot stay hidden here, not for long. They will search again. Next time they might not leave so easily. Sierra's face grew pale. Then what do we do? If they find us, they will kill us. If we run, my children will starve. Her voice broke. We have nowhere else to go. Daniel looked at her, then at the children. His heart felt torn, but he knew the truth. He had to make a choice, either protect them openly and face the wrath of the colony, or walk away and let them die in the shadows. He stood tall, his hands trembling. I will speak to the leaders, he said. I will tell them you deserve mercy. Sierra's eyes widened. In shock, she shook her head quickly. No, you cannot. If you stand with us, they will turn against you too. You will lose your home, your life, everything you have. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then so be it, he replied, his voice firm. What good is a farm if I let children starve outside my door? What good is a life if I cannot protect the innocent? The silence that followed was heavy. Sierra looked at him with trembling lips, unable to speak. Her children stared at him as if seeing something rare, something they had never known. Hope in the shape of a human. Later that day, Daniel walked. Through the colony streets, his steps were slow but strong. People watched him as he passed, farmers, traders, guards. They nodded to him as usual, unaware of the secret he carried, unaware of the choice he had already made. The council hall loomed ahead, tall and stern, its walls built of stone carried from earth, meant to symbolize order and strength. Inside, the colony leaders gathered at a long table, their faces hard. Daniel stood before them, his voice steady. I come with a plea. There are survivors hiding outside the colony, an alien mother and her 2 children. They are starving, they are no threat to us, they only want to live. We must show mercy, we must protect them. The room fell silent. The leaders stared at him as if he had lost his mind. At last, one of them, a tall man with sharp eyes, leaned forward. "You admit to sheltering strays?" Daniel did not flinch. "Yes," he answered, "and I will not deny it. They are not pests, they are not thieves, they are children. Would you let them die?" Murmurs filled the hall, some voices sharp with anger, others uncertain. One woman slammed her hand on the table. "You endanger us all, farmer. These creatures bring disease, chaos, war. If we allow one, more will follow. Soon we will be overrun." Daniel's voice rose, filled with fire. "Is that what we are now? A colony that fears starving children? A people who close their eyes to suffering because it is not our own? If so, then we are no better than the wars that destroyed their homes." Gasps echoed through the chamber. The leaders' faces turned red with fury. One guard stepped forward as if to seize him, but Daniel held his ground. The tall man spoke again, his tone like steel. "You have broken the law, Daniel. By harboring strays, you betray this colony. Do you understand the punishment?" Daniel's heart pounded, but he stood tall. "I understand," he said, "but I will not abandon them. If you call me a traitor for choosing compassion, then so be it." The council erupted in anger. Voices clashed. Some demanded his arrest. Others called for caution. No clear answer rose. The meeting ended in chaos, but the threat was clear. Daniel had placed himself against the colony's will. When he returned to the greenhouse, his face was pale, but his eyes steady. Sierra rushed. To him, fear in her voice. "What happened? What did they say?" Daniel sank onto the wooden bench, his voice low but firm. "They are angry. They may come for me soon. But I told them the truth. I told them you are worth saving." Sierra's lips trembled. She lowered her head. "You risk everything for us." "Why?" Daniel looked at her children, then back at her, his voice quiet but strong. "Because no one else will, because it is the right thing to do." Keln stepped forward, his glowing eyes wide. For the first time, he whispered a word Daniel had not expected, a single word that carried weight heavier than any promise. "Father." The sound broke Sierra's breath. She pulled her son close, tears streaming down her cheeks. Daniel's chest ached. He knew the danger was far from over, but in that moment his choice felt clear. The colony had its laws, its fear, its cruelty, but he had his humanity, and he would not surrender it. And outside, unseen by them all, patrol soldiers gathered near the fields. Their orders were sharp, their eyes cold. They were coming. The next days were heavy with tension. Daniel could feel it in every step he took through the colony streets. The friendly nods of neighbors were gone, replaced by sharp stares and whispers. Farmers turned away when he passed. Guards watched him longer than before. Word had spread. He had stood before the leaders and defended the alien woman and her children. To some, it was madness. To others, it was betrayal. Back at his greenhouse, Sierra stayed hidden with her children. Their fear was stronger now. Leora often cried softly. At night, while Keln sat awake staring at the door as if he expected soldiers to storm in at any moment, Daniel tried to keep his voice calm around them, but inside he felt the weight of every glance, every whisper. He knew it was only a matter of time before the colony acted. One evening, as he walked through the market to gather supplies, a man he once called a friend stepped in front of him. The man's face was twisted with anger. "You," he spat. "You shame us all, you risk our safety for strays. Have you forgotten the blood they spilled in the wars?" Daniel met his gaze, his jaw tight. "These are children. They have spilled no blood. They only starve." The man sneered. "Starving pests grow into enemies. You are blind, and your blindness will cost us." Others nearby listened, some nodding, some frowning. Daniel saw in their faces the divide growing. His choice was breaking the colony apart. When he returned to the greenhouse, Sierra noticed his silence. "They hate you now," she whispered. "Because of us." Daniel shook his head. "No, they hate because they fear. Fear makes people cruel." He sat heavily on the bench, running a hand through his hair. "But I cannot stop now, I will not. That night the sound of boots came again, not faint this time, but loud, clear, and close. The door to the greenhouse rattled with the force of fists. "Open!" a voice thundered. "By order of the council." Sira froze, clutching her children tight. Leora whimpered. Keln's glowing eyes filled with panic. Daniel moved quickly, pushing them toward the hidden hollow beneath the soil bed. "Inside, now," he whispered urgently. He covered them just as the door burst open. 3 soldiers entered, their lanterns bright, their faces cold. Behind them stood 2 neighbors, men Daniel recognized. Their eyes burned with anger and betrayal. One soldier stepped forward. "We know, farmer. You hide them here. Show us where." Daniel stood tall, his hands steady though his chest pounded. "There is nothing here but crops," he said, his voice firm. The soldier sneered. "Do not lie. The council has ordered your arrest for aiding strays." He motioned to the others. "Search everything." They overturned boxes, ripped open soil beds, tossed tools to the floor. Daniel's fists clenched, but he forced himself to stay still. If he fought, it would expose everything. If he did, nothing. They might still find Sira. One of the neighbors stepped close, his voice low and full of venom. "Why, Daniel? Why betray us for them?"
"You lived among us for years, and now you choose creatures over your own people?" Daniel's voice shook with restrained fire. "Because they are people too, whether you accept it or not." The neighbor spat at his feet. "You disgust me." The
soldiers continued their search, one of them pausing dangerously close to the hidden hollow. His boot pressed against the soil. Daniel's chest turned to stone. But just then, another called out. "Nothing here. Only vegetables and dirt." "Do." Lead soldier glared at Daniel. "Very well, farmer, but you are marked now. If we find proof, it will be your life." He slammed a heavy fist against the doorframe before leaving with the others. When the sound faded, Daniel uncovered Sira and her children. They were pale, their bodies trembling. Leora clung to him, her small fingers digging into his sleeve, Sira's eyes filled with tears. "They will not stop. You should let us go. If we leave, you will be safe." Daniel shook his head sharply. "No, if you leave, you will die. I will not let that happen." Her lips trembled. "But you will lose everything." Daniel looked at her, his voice quiet but firm. "Then let it be the cost. If kindness costs me my home, my safety, even my life, so be it. I will not regret saving you." The children looked at him, their glowing eyes shining in the dim light. For the first time, Keln whispered, not with suspicion but with awe. You are not like the others." Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to say something, but words felt too small for the weight of the moment. That night, he sat awake by the greenhouse door, a lantern by his side, listening to every sound of the night. He knew the colony had turned against him. He knew betrayal Sue